Hello everyone, this is part 10 of What If Naruto Wants to Surpass the Nine Tails, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
11 genin were making their way towards the well-hidden, private training ground of Uzumaki Naruto. Most of them had been wanting to speak to him about being the Uzumaki clan head and the son of the Yondaime for a month now. On top of this, they had recently learned that he was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, making them even more anxious to talk to him. Even Sasuke wanted in on that conversation. They had managed to badger his location out of Ayami, which had taken a great deal of reassuring that they held no hard feelings against Naruto due to his Jinchuriki status. None of them had even known that Naruto had a private training ground. They were quite shocked to learn that he had made it himself, meaning that nobody except him truly knew about it. The Sandaime's funeral had been 2 days ago. Naruto had only been present for as long as strictly required before vanishing back to his training, giving no chance for anyone to talk to him. They passed through what was obviously a training area. It had logs that were clearly used for punching and kicking, as they were looking worse for the wear and had more than a few bloodstains on them. There was also a clear running track, along with a bunch of large rocks that looked as if they got moved around a lot, if the drag marks were any indication. Man, he sure doesn't know the meaning of taking it easy, Kiba said in wonder, looking at the bloodstained logs in particular. Naruto overflows with youth during training, if I am not mistaken, then the seals on the trees over there increase the gravity in the training ground. Lee said admiringly. This was his kind of training. You mean he keeps the same type of seal that he used to defeat me active while he trains? Neji asked disbelievingly. He had barely been able to move with that seal active and Naruto kept it active for training. No doubt he also has his resistance seals active as well. Lee confirmed, making everyone look at the spandex-clad genin incredulously. Training with that kind of insane handicap should have left the blonde barely able to move, much less train effectively. They kept walking forward, passing a tree that had Naruto's clothing hanging on it. All of it, underwear included, and they could hear the burbling of a slow-moving river nearby. Maybe we should come back later, Sakura suggested, having no desire to see her teammate in the buff. Since you're here already, then you might as well get this over with, came Naruto's voice from behind a large rock. They all jumped a bit, not having expected him to be that close. They moved around the rock, to find the blonde that they had been looking for lounging in a fairly large pool that had been created artificially by the use of an improvised dam. The water was quite clear and he was obviously naked. Well, what are you here for? That's so important that Ayami would tell you how to find this place, Naruto prodded. He would have been upset with Ayami telling him about his private training ground, but he knew that she was just trying to look out for him. She was of the opinion that he should try to make some friends among his graduating class, even if they were barely more than a bunch of kids. Well, we were curious about you being the son of the Yondaime and the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, Ino said awkwardly, trying hard to look anywhere except the water that wasn't doing much to hide his lower body. The others were attempting the same thing. What about it? Naruto asked in a disinterested tone. Well, being the son of a Hokage is a big deal, especially the Yondaime. I bet you must have been excited to find out, huh? Ino continued, now getting more into the conversation. I've known about it for years actually, and if it was up to me, then nobody would ever have known. The only reason I revealed it was because it was the only way to get the damn council off my back, Naruto retorted irritably. He was still annoyed at the elders for forcing him to do that. But why would you want to keep something like that hidden? Sakura asked in shock. He probably didn't want any of his father's enemies going after him, Shikamaru interjected. Troublesome, he finished with a mutter. Actually, it was because everyone would start acting just like you guys, as if it matters who my parents were. They're dead and gone, so it doesn't matter the slightest bit who and what they were, Naruto countered. How can you just disregard your clan and family like that? Sasuke asked, bewildered at Naruto's dismissive attitude towards his heritage. All of the genin present, with the exception of Sakura, Tenten, Hinata and Lee, were also confused by his words. They had always been told to take pride in their clan, and it was strange to them to meet someone with such a rich heritage and hearing him disregard it as completely unimportant. Hinata had spoken to him about something similar, so she knew that he placed no value on being in a clan. Easily, because they're not here and never have been. The blonde shot back and climbed out of the water, flashing his junk at everyone. Hinata barely managed to maintain consciousness, thanks mostly to the fact that she had built a slight resistance to embarrassment due to hanging around Naruto. It also helped that Neji stepped in front of her, blocking her view. The two of them had reconciled after Hiashi had spoken to Neji and were rebuilding the sibling relationship that had once existed between them. The others weren't in any danger of fainting, but they were still horribly embarrassed by the experience, making them turn away immediately. Damn it, Naruto, at least warn us before you do something like that. Sakura shrieked. You're the ones who walked in on my bathing. Aside from that, nobody forced you to look and I've got nothing to be ashamed of anyway. Naruto answered flippantly as he walked towards his clothes. You wouldn't be like this if you were a woman. The pinkett muttered irritably, feeling pretty pissed off at her teammate. Wouldn't I? Naruto said with a smirk. Henge no Jutsu, transformation technique. Before them now stood a 6 feet 2 inches blonde Amazon that had more muscle on her than most men they'd seen. She also had a heaving pair of large breasts that seemed to be made of more muscle than fat. How do I look? The now female Naruto asked, posing, smirk still in place. What the fuck, man? You can't just go gender bending like that. Why would you even do that? Kiba yelled out in protest, blushing bright red. All the others were in similar states of blushing. I got curious about lesbian sex one day, was the response as Naruto released his transformation and pulled his clothes on, much to the relief of the others. They all collectively decided that they weren't going to even think about that last sentence in any detail ever again. So, Kyubi Jinchuriki ha. Kiba started awkwardly after they had all finished mentally blocking as much of the previous few minutes as possible. Yees. Naruto drawled out in a, get to the point, manner. What's it like having a giant demon sealed inside you? The Inuzuka blurted out, making most of the others facepalm at how tactless that was. I feel normal during the day, but at night. Naruto's face twisted into a haunted, but hungry expression, making everyone lean forward in interest. Quote. I get cravings. What kind of cravings? Chuji asked curiously. He knew all about cravings. Sometimes he woke up in the middle of the night, feeling so hungry that he couldn't sleep. Cravings for the menstrual blood of virgins. The blonde finished with a demented leering expression. They all took a shocked second to process that disturbing statement, just to make sure that they'd heard right, before suddenly developing a greenish pallor. Naruto, that's disgusting. Ino and Sakura said in unison, looking as they were about to puke at any moment. Everyone else just silently tried to stop the bile from leaving their stomachs. Naruto chuckled to himself at the looks on their faces. You're all just too damn easy. Does it give you more power? Is that the source of your strength? Sasuke interrupted, getting to the point of why he had even come here. Being the Kyubi Jinchuriki gave me a set of really nice teeth and whisker marks, along with so much chakra that I have to create my own specialized ninjutsu if I want to use any. Naruto said dryly. He made it sound like a disability, but in reality he was already planning ways to increase his reserves further. The fight against Shukaku told him that even he could run out, especially considering how chakra-intensive most of his abilities were. If you want to know how I got this strong, then you could have just asked Lee. He continued. Yosh. The answer is hard work. Lee said with certainty. Naruto is like me, someone with no talent, but a genius of hard work. Sasuke scowled. He wasn't sure what he'd been hoping to hear, but that his teammate was stronger simply because he worked harder was not it. Sasuke knew that he worked hard too. He put in hours of training every day, so why was it that Naruto was so much stronger? The blonde wasted so much time chasing women that it should be no problem for a prodigy like him to overtake him, so why was it that Naruto kept growing more powerful so fast that he was leaving everyone in the dust? Before anything more could be said, a whirlwind of wind and leaves announced the arrival of Jiraiya. Oi Naruto, get your things packed, we've got a mission. He said right away. What kind of mission and why am I going on a mission with you anyway? The blonde asked immediately. I've got training to do, you know. We're going to find the goddamn Hokage and bring her back to Konoha and you're coming with me because I want you to. The Toad Sage explained. No thanks, I'd rather continue my training. He had already prepared everything he would need if he had to become a missing nin in case the new Hokage was someone that would cause trouble for him. What? You think you can just sign a man's summoning contract and then say goodbye? Oh no, we're in this for the long haul. You and me, brat, we're gonna be as good as married until you've learned everything that I've got to teach you. You're my apprentice now, and that means that you're coming with me on anything that I say, which includes this trip to convince my old teammate to become Hokage. Jiraiya retorted boisterously and grabbed the blonde in a headlock. Everyone was looking at him like he was a lunatic. Unknown to them, it was this exact kind of behavior that had led to him being called the Village Madness years ago. You've taken Naruto as an apprentice, Jiraiya-sama. Does that mean that he won't be on a team with us anymore? Sakura asked. Despite how hard he was to deal with, she didn't really want Naruto to be pulled off Team 7. Don't be so respectful to this failed pervert, Sakura, it'll go to his head. Naruto told her, getting out of the headlock. That's so mean, my own godson keeps forgetting that I'm a super pervert. Sakura felt her respect for the white-haired Sannin shrivel and die when she heard him blatantly and proudly declare himself a super pervert. To answer your question, no. Naruto will still be part of Team 7, I'm just going to be pulling him away from time to time. You mean you're going to bring Tsunade-sama back to the village to take up the post of Godime? Tenten asked with stars in her eyes as she worked out who exactly they were going to search for. Got that right, little lady. Jiraiya confirmed. Can I come too? Please, she pleaded. Tsunade was widely considered to be one of the most powerful kunoichi in the world, and it was for this reason that the female Sannin was an idol for Tenten. She desperately wanted to meet the legendary kunoichi and maybe even talk to her. Well, I guess, Jiraiya said while scratching his head. There wasn't any particular reason not to take the girl along. Tenten let out a fangirlish squeal before covering her mouth with her hands and blushing in embarrassment when everyone stared at her. Kakashi was leaning against the wall of a tea shop, reading his porn and waiting for Sasuke to arrive. Jiraiya had already left Konoha to search for Tsunade, taking Naruto and Tenten with him, and Sasuke had immediately demanded training. Kakashi was proud of all of his students now. Naruto was already showing all the signs that his determination would allow him to overtake even his father eventually. Sasuke was highly talented and his abilities were progressing quickly, though his attitude definitely could be better and his resentment of Naruto's strength was a point of some worry. Sakura was finally shaping up to be a strong kunoichi instead of wasting all her time staring at Sasuke. Aside from waiting for Sasuke, he was also keeping an eye on the two suspicious individuals in the black cloaks with red clouds. Jiraiya-sama had warned him about Akatsuki and their presence here boded ill. Quote, I can't go on a date with you. The voice of Kurenai floated towards Kakashi's ears. Why not? Asuma asked in a disappointed tone, walking beside the genjutsu mistress. I'm already involved with someone. She answered shortly as they stopped next to Kakashi, greeting each other with nods, a slight movement of Kakashi's head and eye alerting the two new arrivals to the two cloaked men inside. They continued on as normal, giving no sign that they were aware of the nearby threat. Don't tell me you're in a relationship with Naruto, that guy is a total womanizer. Asuma said in disbelief. No. Naruto made it clear that he isn't interested in a relationship. Kurenai answered, not denying the fact that Naruto was a womanizer. He just was. Who then? Asuma asked curiously. He was still disappointed about being rejected, but he was honestly curious which guy Kurenai could have met and gotten into a relationship with this fast. Kurenai sighed to herself. Honestly, it wasn't any of Asuma's business and she knew that he wouldn't push it if she wanted to keep it quiet. But spending time around Anko and Naruto, neither of which had any shame to speak of, made keeping it a secret seem pretty silly. Anko. Asuma nearly choked on his cigarette in surprise and started hacking out smoke, making Kurenai snigger, and the silent Kakashi gave what could only be considered an eye smirk. Wow. I didn't know that you, swung that way. The bearded Junin stammered awkwardly. I didn't used to, but then Naruto and Anko somehow got me into a threesome and things just kind of snowballed from there. The female Junin replied with a shrug, making Asuma gape like a fish again. Kakashi laid his book across his heart, feeling as if it was going to explode out of his chest in pride. He couldn't have been prouder even if Naruto had been his own son. He never even noticed the tear that slipped out of his eye. Truly, the next generation always surpasses the previous. Kakashi, you're early. Sasuke said in surprise as he approached his distracted sensei. He needed to get in as much training as possible if Naruto had gotten himself apprenticed to a Sannin. He wasn't really surprised at that, considering that Jiraiya had taught Naruto's father and had mentioned being his godfather, but it still grated on him that Naruto had such a powerful teacher. Someone turned all the clocks in my apartment 3 hours forward. The Cyclopean Junin explained with an eye smile. Well, let's get to the training. Kakashi said and whisked his student away from what was quite possibly going to be a very dangerous fight. Kurenai and Asuma were going to have to manage on their own until he could get back. 3 people were walking through the streets of Otofuku-gai. 2 of them were big, long-haired men dressed in a manner that attracted attention everywhere, one of them blonde and the other white-haired. Walking next to them was a much smaller girl with brown hair in buns on top of her head and brown eyes. So Jiraiya-sama, you said back in the village that Naruto is your godson. Tenten began in a questioning tone. Yeah, Minato and Kushina made me his godfather because the Yondaime was my student. Jiraiya confirmed. The Yondaime must have been some kind of super genius to become as powerful as he was at such a young age. Tenten said admiringly. So, the Yondaime was as dumb as a rock and twice as stubborn, that's the real reason that he became so strong. People like to say that everyone who becomes strong was a genius to make themselves feel better about it, but in truth geniuses are pretty rare and most of them don't make it as far as they could. People call me a genius nowadays, but when I was a genin I was regarded as a loser. The Sannin said. Oh, the weapons specialist said quietly, never having thought of it that way. Seeing the talentless Lee getting beaten down by a genius Neji all the time had shaped her into thinking that only geniuses became legends, but that had not held up to scrutiny. That's actually a lot more impressive than being a genius, she admitted. You're pretty amazing, Jiraiya-sama. Hee. Of course, I'm the great Jiraiya-sama. The Toad Sage said, nearly bursting into his introduction dance. There's no need to be so respectful to this perverted hermit Tenten. Naruto told the bun-haired girl. Oi, you've got some nerve calling me a perverted hermit, considering the things you get up to. Jiraiya said in protest. Considering that all you do is chase and peep on women and then get your ass kicked by them, while I actually get somewhere with them, I think your title of hermit suits you very well. Naruto said back with a grin. Jiraiya grumbled to himself about disrespectful young upstarts, but didn't continue the argument. This is where we'll be staying. The Toad Sage said as they walked through the entrance of an inn, receiving no protest from the other 2. Just as the innkeeper handed Jiraiya the key, both he and Naruto noticed a very pretty young woman walk past the entrance. She had black hair and brown eyes and was wearing a strapless dark blue dress with 2 thin gold belts. On her feet were strap-on heels and there was an intricate necklace around her neck. She stopped and looked through the entrance, giving a clearly inviting look in the direction of Naruto and Jiraiya. Woo. Why don't you 2 get comfortable in our room while I take this pretty out on a date? The Toad Sage said, already overcome by perverted thoughts. What's wrong with you, old man? She's clearly interested in me, so why don't you get settled while I show her a good time? Naruto countered, already moving towards her. Oh hell no, you've already gotten to half the women in Konoha, I'm not letting you take all of them in the surrounding countryside too. I, the gallant Jiraiya, shall save this beautiful young lady from you. The Sannin declared and stepped forward before his godson could vanish off somewhere with the girl. Both of them moved towards the girl, leaving Tenten holding the key and sweet-dropping. Why do I feel like an annoying little kid that just got ditched so that they can go do grown-up stuff? Tenten muttered to herself. She resisted the urge to pout. Out of sight, a considerable distance away, 2 men in black cloaks decorated with red clouds were also sweet-dropping. Looks like your diversion worked a little too well, Itachi. Kisame said with a snigger. It wasn't often that one of Itachi's plans backfired like that. I had not anticipated that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki would share Jiraiya's weakness for women. Inwardly, however, he was pleased. He had alerted both Konoha and Jiraiya to the danger of Akatsuki, with none being the wiser about his deception. Are we still going after the Kyuubi? Kisame asked. They will be aware of us soon. The Kyuubi is out of our reach for now. It hadn't taken the 2 of them long to figure out that the girl was under a genjutsu. It was kind of hard to miss when she didn't even register Naruto's existence despite him being right in front of her. With this in mind, they quickly made their way back to Tenten, only to find her talking to Sasuke, who was looking somewhat frantic. What's up, princess? Naruto asked when they came back to the inn. Where's Itachi? Sasuke demanded immediately, ignoring the nickname. How the hell am I supposed to know that? Naruto asked back with a scowl. He came to Konoha looking for you. Well, that would explain who cast the genjutsu on that girl. Jiraiya interjected. Itachi always was good with genjutsu. Naruto agreed. How do you know that? Sasuke demanded again. With the same age you know, he was my classmate in the academy for a little while before he just skipped ahead and graduated. The blonde told him. More to the point, why would Itachi be after me? Well, it's not him specifically, it's the organization he works for, Akatsuki. They're trying to gather all 9 Beiyu for some reason. The Sannin informed. There was no particularly important reason to keep that hidden since everyone present already knew about Naruto holding the Kyuubi. Aside from that, if the enemy was trying to keep secrets, then blowing those secrets is often going to be detrimental to them somehow. Naruto thought that over for a moment, trying to convince himself that there wasn't someone out there who was stupid enough to try and reform the Shinju. There wouldn't be any sage of 6 paths to stop it this time. How could someone have even known about it? Naruto supposed that it could be possible that they were doing it for some other reason, but he couldn't think of any. Well, at least he could rest easy in the knowledge that they were doomed to failure and had been doomed to failure ever since he had released Xana when he was 15. Even if they were somehow able to subdue her, she wasn't like the other Beiyu, she wouldn't fight a losing battle. Xana knew the value of a strategic retreat and they would never find her if she didn't want to be found. He contemplated revealing that little factoid, but disregarded the idea. Even if they believed him, they would still target him as the one who had the most information about her, and they would be far less careful about killing him in that case. Who else is in Akatsuki? Naruto asked. I don't know the names of the other members, but they're all supposed to be S-rank missing nin. You'll be able to recognize them by the black cloaks with red clouds that they wear. Do you know how many of them there are? The blonde pressed further. 9 or 10, but this isn't completely reliable information. Jiraiya cautioned. So I've got at least 9 S-rank missing nin after my ass, that's just great. Naruto deadpanned. Can't a man work towards marrying the woman the loves without a group of overpowered criminals trying to revive a world-ending monstrosity? After Guy arrived and took Sasuke back to Konoha, the 3 of them continued their search for Tsunade. Tenten had been pretty shocked at how easily Naruto had blown off the threat of that many missing nin. That wasn't to say that he wasn't wary of them, he just wasn't intimidated, believing with utter certainty that he would be able to come out on top. If he wasn't strong enough now, then he would get strong enough. She was starting to see just why people like Naruto became so strong. They were too stubborn to be stopped. Aside from that, Tenten spent the next few days feeling pretty annoyed, as the 2 males with her spent most of their time hanging around women and drinking sake in every new town they visited. Apparently the 2 of them found common ground in irritating her with their antics, though Naruto also made it a point to seduce as many women away from his godfather as possible, much to the older man's irritation. I can't believe you 2 were supposed to be looking for Tsunade-sama and you're wasting time. She huffed. Places like this are actually great for information gathering. Naruto pointed out, lounging lazily on a couch with 4 girls around him. Naruto is right, somebody always hears something in these kinds of places. Jiraiya agreed, though the way that he was staring at a passing girl's rear end discredited him somewhat. You're too tense, Tenten, how about I pay for one of these ladies to give you a massage? Naruto suggested, quirking his eyebrow at her. No. The 3 of them made their way into bar in Tanzakugai with the intention of getting some dinner, but instead ran into the very woman that they were looking for, along with a younger, black-haired woman and a little piglet. Tsunade, Shizune. Fancy meeting you here. Jiraiya greeted cheerfully. I just seem to keep running into old faces lately. Tsunade said, mostly to herself. Ran into Orochimaru lately, have you? Jiraiya asked shrewdly. Yeah, he came to brag about killing Sensei. The slug Sannin said dismissively. So what are you here for, Jiraiya? I'll get right to the point, I'm here to ask you to become God. I'm Hokage. Tsunade looked incredulous for a second before she snorted derisively. No thanks, being Hokage is a fool's job. You seem rather quick to spit on your own family and sensei. Naruto pointed out. He wasn't going to make any mention of his own old man, since it wasn't really relevant. Who's this Jiraiya? Your new apprentice, Tsunade said while looking him up and down, not making any mention of his shirtless attire. Yeah, Minato and Kushina's boy actually, Naruto. He just made Genin a few months ago. The Toad Sage told her. The quality of your apprentices has gone down quite a bit. He seems dumber than the last one if it took him that long, not to mention that he looks like a pervert, walking around shirtless like that. The woman said rudely. Hey, I don't care if you call him a worthless piece of shit, Naruto burst out, gesturing at Jiraiya, making the man in question give a loud, offended protest, but if you're gonna say stuff like that to me, then you better be ready to back it up with your fists. Oh yeah, well then let's take this outside pervert. Tsunade replied just as heatedly. Tenten and Shizune, who had been silent this entire time, just gave despondent sighs at how quickly the situation had devolved into violence. Tenten had to say that her first impression of Tsunade wasn't all that great, but she still believed that Tsunade was someone to look up to. Though she was surprised at how young the woman looked, considering that she was the same age as Jiraiya, she was also a bit shocked at her chest size. She was a bit worried about Naruto though. The crazy blonde just went and picked a fight against a Sannin over a relatively minor insult. I'll only need one finger to take care of someone like you, Tsunade said and prepared her finger. Tsunade, I don't think. Jiraiya tried to warn her, but was interrupted by his godson. Oh, so that's how you want to play it, a humiliation match? Naruto asked rhetorically. Well then bring it on, tits. What did you call me? The woman roared furiously. You don't like your new nickname, tits? Naruto smirked at her. Then get over here and do something about it. Too enraged to even say another word, the blonde Sannin charged at Naruto, intent on poking a hole right through his head with her finger. Tsunade was an S-ranked kunoichi and was thus not to be underestimated, but she hadn't seriously fought or trained in years, which had weakened her quite a bit. This allowed Naruto to avoid her furious attacks with that finger. She surprised him however when she stepped on his foot, trapping him and then rapidly finger-flicking him so hard that he flew into a wall, breaking it down in a cloud of dust. That'll teach him, the busty woman said in satisfaction. That almost hurt, came Naruto's voice as he exited the dust cloud, cracking his neck. In fact it had hurt quite a bit, but she didn't need to know that. Tsunade gritted teeth and charged at her fellow blonde again, intent on knocking him out for at least a week. Naruto kept avoiding her attacks for a while before she managed to hit him again, this time much harder. Which was why she overbalanced dangerously when the shadow clone dispersed, leaving her confused for a split second. That split second was all that the real Naruto, who had sneaked up behind her, needed to wrap both of her arms in chains and pull them behind her back as far as possible, enough to make her shoulder blades stand out sharply. He kicked her in the back of her knees at the same time, making her legs buckle even as her hands were forced into full extension and the chains wrapped around them securely in a spider web pattern, denying her the leverage she would need to bring her infamous super strength to bear. It wasn't over yet however, as the chains holding her wrists also extended down to her ankles, making it so that she couldn't get up or use her feet either, at least not without pulling her arms out. As a final touch, the chains also snaked around and between her breasts, down to her groin, framing her nether lips and rising up her back to join with the chains holding her arms. During this time, the chains had also formed a collar around her neck. Everyone always falls for the shadow clone trick as long as they don't know you can do it. It's kind of funny really. Naruto commented to himself. What the hell is this, you fucking bastard? The bound woman roared her demand, her face red from a combination of anger and humiliation. Don't worry, tits, I'm a master of shibari, Naruto assured her. When I get out of here I'm going to rip your fucking balls off and make you eat them, you perverted piece of shit. She roared loud enough that the walls around them shook and every civilian in hearing range fled. Tenten and Shizune were looking at the whole thing with furious blushes, too shocked to move, even Tonton seemed to be a brighter pink than usual. As for Jiraiya, well, Jiraiya knew that he was going to die when Tsunade got out of those chains. It didn't matter that it was his godson who had done it, he would be killed just for associating with him and being a pervert. In fact, she might well kill every pervert in the city. As he listened to his old teammate spew threats and curses the likes of which would make even Orochimaru invent new shades of pale. The self-proclaimed super pervert resigned himself to a bloody death and enjoyed the sight that his godson had provided, determined to stay true to himself to the end, if there had to be an end. You know, tits, you're pretty loud. Naruto commented as Tsunade stopped to get some air. I've got just the thing for that. Fuck you and everyone you know, youmph. Tsunade's eyes widened in outrage as the item gagging her was revealed to be a bright red balgag. She kept trying to scream profanity around it, but all she got for her efforts was muffled noises and twin trails of drool dripping off her chin and into her cleavage. Jiraiya looked at his gagged former teammate and had to admit that she looked damn sexy right now. If he somehow survived this with at least one arm, he was going to have to write a book about this. There was no denying that his godson was a braver man than him for doing something like this. Crazy bastard must have balls made of diamond. Naruto, why do you have a balgag with you? Jiraiya asked with the calm of a man that knew he was going to die. When you can form chains at will, you never know when a balgag might come in handy. Naruto answered over Tsunade's muffled screaming. Jiraiya nodded at the logic, that made sense to him. His godson was clearly a genius. Naruto-san, don't you think that it's time to release Tsunade-sama? You've already won the fight. Shizune asked, still blushing furiously. Shizune was it? Naruto asked and the woman nodded. Well you see, if I just let her go then Tits won't learn her lesson. Aside from that it looks like she might try to kill me. Might. Everyone thought to themselves incredulously as they looked at the chained woman that was practically frothing at the mouth from rage. What lesson could you possibly be trying to teach her with that? Tenten asked in shock, not really believing that what she'd just seen had actually happened, but no matter how much she rubbed her eyes or tried to dispel the genjutsu, Tsunade was still chained and gagged in the street. There are 3 things that you never, ever do in this world. Naruto said gravely, making them all lean forward with interest. You never mess with a man's money. He began. You never mess with a man's woman. He continued. And you never mess with a man's ego, or the man is going to mess with you. Naruto finished, making them all stare at him. Granted, this generally only applies to other men and messing with someone's ego is the smallest of these offenses, but the point is still the same. Tits here insulted me and tried to humiliate me by kicking my ass with just one finger. In response to this, I used a similarly humiliating tactic, I was just better at it. Jiraiya was awed. His godson had somehow made chaining a woman up in shibari style in the middle of the street, and then shoving a balgag into her mouth, sound logical. The entire group was now in the hotel, the still chained Tsunade having been carried in by Naruto. At least she had stopped trying to yell and was instead trying to develop a technique to shoot fire from her eyes. He had by now removed all the chains that weren't needed to keep her bound, such as the ones around her breasts, the collar and the ones passing her groin. I need to talk to Tsunade alone for a while. Naruto told them all once they were done making room arrangements. And I mean just talk to her, Jiraiya. He continued when he saw the Toad Sage getting a perverted gleam in his eye. As soon as they were alone in the room, Naruto sat cross-legged down on the floor next to where Tsunade was kneeling. Are you going to start yelling again if I remove the gag, Tsunade? She glared at him, but made note of the fact that he at least wasn't calling her tits anymore. After a few seconds she shook her head and Naruto removed the balgag. She had never been so humiliated before in her life and it was taking all the self-control that she had to keep from yelling threats and insults. She knew that he would shove that balgag back into her mouth if she did that. Well, what did you want to talk about? She didn't quite manage to keep the resentment out of her voice though. I'm wondering why you seem to have a grudge against the office of Hokage. If you resented just a particular Hokage I could understand, but what did the position itself ever do to you? She stayed mulishly silent for a few minutes and Naruto waited patiently until she spoke. It took my loved ones from me. How did it manage to do that? Naruto asked dryly. My grandfather and granduncle got themselves killed because they were Hokage. Sensei got himself killed because he was Hokage. Even your father got himself killed because he was Hokage. Except for Sensei, all of them were still young. If they hadn't been Hokage, then they would have lived longer. She said sullenly. They died protecting what they loved and considered important. They were Hokage because they considered all of Konoha important. Even if they weren't Hokage, they would have risked their lives to defend the village and probably ended up dying for it all the same. Naruto pointed out. I know that. She snapped at him. Konoha has done nothing but take the people I love away from me, even my little brother and the man I loved. She ended in a near whisper. How is Konoha to blame for the deaths? They wanted to be Hokage too, that was their dream, to protect the village. Konoha's will of fire drove them to their deaths. They died chasing after the dreams, which is a better death than most people get. What do you know? She muttered resentfully. You're just a stupid pervert anyway. I've got my own dream and I don't care how dangerous it is to pursue it. If I die trying to reach it, then so be it. I think your loved ones must have had similar sentiments, Naruto said with certainty. So the fact that they died chasing the dreams makes it alright. That they left me alone is somehow supposed to be alright because of that. Tsunade asked heatedly, with a slight crack in her voice. You'll be joining them soon enough, Tsunade, and you know that they wouldn't want you to be wasting away like this. Wouldn't it be better to carry the dreams in your heart instead of hurling insults at them? Naruto asked pointedly. He knew that he didn't have that comfort. If he failed, then Xana, being immortal, would never join him in the afterlife, he would be separated from her forever. He knew what many shinobi, most notably Orochimaru, had become in their search for immortality. He knew that it wasn't wise to seek eternal life, but then again, Naruto had never claimed to be wise. And what about Shizune? She's been putting her own life on hold to take care of you, doesn't she deserve to have a life of her own too? That was a blatant guilt trip, but it was still true. That brought the female Sannin up short. Shizune had never complained, but she was a 28-year-old woman and she hadn't really had much of a life because Tsunade had been dragging her around over half the elemental nations. She had to put up with her constant drinking and gambling, often having to carry a passed-out Tsunade to her bed after her latest drinking binge, but she had still never complained. And what about this dream of yours? Are you intending to be Hokage too? Tsunade asked sarcastically, mostly to get her mind off her previous train of thought. I'm afraid that hatred of the villagers for being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki has left me unable to muster enough fondness for Konoha to be Hokage. The only reason I'm protecting the village is because some people that I like live in it. He said frankly. He had never made any secret of his general dislike of the civilians in the village. Well then, what is this dream of yours? She pressed. I think I'm going to have to keep that a secret for a while longer, but I'll be sure to tell you about it one day. Naruto said teasingly and removed the chains from her, making the woman stand up and stretch. So, are you going to accept the position of Hokage? He asked her. Give me a week to think about it. She answered. Oh, and Naruto. He looked towards her just in time to get smashed in the face with her fist. That was for calling me tits. She then proceeded to kick the downed teenager in the gut with all the force she could muster without chakra enhancement. And that was for chaining me up. Finally, she stomped on his chest hard enough to crack his ribs. And that was for the balgag. As Tsunade stormed out of the room and slammed the door closed behind her, Naruto stayed on the floor, wounds already healing. Well, I think that went pretty well, he said, spitting some blood off to the side. The following week was rather surreal for Jiraiya. This was due entirely to the fact that Tsunade and Naruto seemed to have become friends while he wasn't looking. The two of them would hit the bars and drink together, often leaving people baffled at their ridiculous alcohol tolerance, and other times they went gambling together. Tsunade had discovered that Naruto apparently had the luck of the devil himself, and it was hard for him to lose a game of chance even on purpose. Which led to the two of them cleaning people out and then laughing themselves stupid over it. They were not very gracious in victory, and Tsunade was enjoying the feeling of being a winner, even if it was only by proxy, a little too much. Shizune was at least happy to see Tsunade laughing and not getting blind drunk on a regular basis. He had no idea how his godson had done it, but somehow he had managed to make friends with a woman that he had put in chains and carried to a room like she was spoils of war. The fact that the woman in question was Tsunade, a known hater of perverts, made it that much harder to believe. It was about then that the perverted Sannin knew that he was in the presence of a master, and he intended to record as much as possible, for the good of perverts everywhere. Tenten had been thoroughly disillusioned about her idol and had spent a couple of days sulking about it, until Jiraiya had taken pity on the depressive weapons user and talked to her about it. Flashback. I don't understand, how can Tsunade-sama act like that? She's practically a living legend, but she acts more like a gambling drunk than anything else. A distressed Tenten said. Everyone has their own way of dealing with things. Tsunade likes to drink and gamble, I like to peep on the hot springs, Kakashi likes to read porn in public, Guy likes to shout about youth, and there's 1,000 other examples. Jiraiya explained patiently. But why is that even necessary? Can't they just be normal instead of developing some ridiculous bad habit? Tenten asked sulkily, but also in interest. You know who never developed a way to blow off steam? Jiraiya asked dryly. Who? Orochimaru. He was always so serious and controlled, now he goes around stealing people's bodies, trying to become immortal. Oh. End flashback. The weapons user had been more understanding after that talk, though she hadn't managed to talk to the slug Sannin yet, mostly because she knew that her behavior bordered on the fangirlish and didn't want to annoy her. She spent her time talking to Shizune instead, as the younger medic had many questions about how things were in Konoha. She resolved to speak to her when they got back to Konoha. Tsunade herself had been having a lot of fun in the past week. Once she stopped being so angry at her fellow blonde for the way he had beaten her in that fight, she had been able to appreciate that he was good company. He never stared at her chest when they talked, but he didn't find her unattractive either. He was willing to go gambling and drinking with her and didn't seem to care whether he won or lost. In fact, they had won so much money from cleaning out the casinos in Tanzakugai that she could practically pay off all of her debts, and the shirtless teenager just let her keep it, saying that he could always get more if he needed it. But now Orochimaru's deadline was approaching and she found herself unwilling to help him. Naruto had been right when he said that it was better to carry Naoki's and Dan's dreams in her heart instead of being angry and depressed that they died while chasing them. He had also been right that she would join him soon enough, and she didn't want to be a washed-out drunk when she did. She was still going to keep up the illusion of being young though. Getting old might not be a problem for her anymore, but looking old was. She wasn't going to involve anyone else in her little problem with Orochimaru though. She had gotten into that situation by herself and she would deal with it herself. She was going to refuse his offer and hopefully kill him while doing it. His proposition had been suspicious as it was, and now that the shock of renewed grief from hearing him offer to bring them back to life had worn off, she knew that he was up to something. Orochimaru hadn't been trustworthy for decades and she knew that he would double-cross her if she agreed to his terms. Jiraiya, Naruto, Shizune and Tenten arrived to help Tsunade, who was currently fighting Yakushi Kabuto while Orochimaru watched. Tsunade had gone drinking with Naruto and Jiraiya and slipped a drug into the drinks that was supposed to have taken him out of commission long enough for her to deal with Orochimaru and his lackey. That was the plan anyway, but Kabuto was proving slippery and surprisingly skilled and Tsunade was out of shape. You're such an idiot, Tsunade, trying to handle this all by yourself. Naruto said lightly. The drug had knocked him out and given him some trouble with his chakra control for a while, but the adrenaline from the run had already more or less purged it from him due to the unique healing properties of his chakra. Jiraiya wasn't so fortunate and had to deal with screwy chakra control. Tsunade scowled at her fellow blonde, irritated that her plan had failed. I'll take care of Orochimaru, you three help Tsunade take on the guy with glasses. Jiraiya ordered. Seeing the tide turning against him, Kabuto quickly cut himself and splashed some blood on Tsunade, making her freeze, and then jumped back towards Orochimaru. What's wrong with her? Naruto demanded, looking warily at Kabuto. The last time he'd seen Kabuto, the silver-haired teen had seemed like an insignificant weakling, but he had clearly been giving Tsunade some trouble, which meant that he was no doubt more skilled than he had seemed. She has hemophobia, fear of blood. Shizune explained, placing herself in position to shield the unresponsive Tsunade. You've got to be kidding me. Naruto grumbled. Both Jiraiya and Orochimaru, with Kabuto's help, started on the summoning technique. Orochimaru and Kabuto produced two massive brown-scaled snakes, while Jiraiya summoned Gamakichi. Yo! The small toad greeted. Jiraiya felt himself being stared at and turned to see his godson giving him a very deadpan look. Which one were you trying to summon? Naruto asked evenly. Gamahiro. Jiraiya answered with an awkward grin. Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning technique. As the giant aquamarine toad appeared with two swords crossed over his back appeared under Naruto and Jiraiya, Orochimaru narrowed his eyes at the blonde. He has progressed quickly, to be capable of summoning at this level already. Perhaps I should have killed him in the Forest of Death, in spite of Akatsuki wanting him alive. He is growing too fast. Thanks, brat, now go help Shizune and Tenten against the other guy. Jiraiya said. If summoning Gamakichi is the best you can do, then you're in no condition to be fighting Orochimaru. Naruto countered and stayed his ground. Jiraiya grit his teeth in irritation, but had to admit that his godson might well be right. Fine, but keep an eye on them in case they need help. With nothing more to be said, the two snakes attacked, the one carrying Orochimaru heading for Gamahiro and the one with Kabuto going for Tsunade. The silent aquamarine toad swung his dual katanas, intending to take the serpent's head off, but the snake was easily agile enough to avoid the attack. It tried to wrap Gamahiro in its coils, but the toad placed his twin blades in the way, forcing the snake to abandon the plan or get cut to pieces. Naruto risked a quick glance towards the other battle, seeing Shizune and Tenten keeping Kabuto at bay with barrages of thrown weapons, but clearly outmatched by the silver-haired man's skill. Naruto could see that they wouldn't be able to hold him off indefinitely, though the fact that Tenten had managed to get rid of the snake with a liberal application of explosive notes was surprising. It just went to prove that most problems could be solved with more explosions, which gave him an idea now that he thought of it. Jumping off Gamahiro and charging towards the preoccupied reptile, the blonde ran alongside it and pressed his palm against the scales every few steps, the two dueling Sannin both taking note of his actions from the corner of their eyes. It didn't look like Naruto was doing anything, but Orochimaru wasn't willing to risk it and swiftly commanded the snake to lash out with its tail, smacking him away. Naruto shook his head to clear the cobwebs once he landed and made a ram seal, activating the chakra he had placed in the seals that he had placed on the snake's body. A series of explosions erupted on the serpent's body, crippling it and making it an easy target for Gamahiro's swords. Naruto didn't wait to see how the battle between Sannin would go from there and charged towards Kabuto, who had already incapacitated Shizune and was now going for a nervous-looking Tenten. Kabuto noticed him before he could spring a surprise attack on him and jumped away. Soshoryu, twin rising dragons. Tenten's technique forced Kabuto underground, as there was practically no spot left that wasn't the target of some weapon or other. Naruto, he's going to try to cut your Achilles tendon. The bun-haired weapons user called out in warning, remembering that this was how Shizune had been taken down. Reacting to the warning immediately, Naruto decided to try and turn Kabuto's offense against him, sending multiple chains rushing through the ground in the direction that Kabuto had been. Within a few seconds he felt his chains hit something other than earth and then continue forward. He pulled the chains upward, tearing apart the earth, and grinned when he saw that Kabuto was impaled through the gut and leg. Deciding not to take chances against such a dangerous opponent, he readied a brightly glowing Rasengan and had the chains carry the silver-haired traitor to him. Kabuto's eyes widened in fear as he saw himself being brought towards the deadly technique. He hadn't known that Naruto was capable of sending his chains through the ground, and he couldn't free himself since he was impaled all the way through. Unless some kind of outside interference saved him, then the blonde was going to kill him. Unfortunately for him, Orochimaru was currently busy with Jiraiya and Gamahiro and couldn't do anything to help him, so Naruto was able to shove the chakra orb into his chest, destroying his heart and mangling several other internal organs in a shower of gore. Not even his regeneration technique could heal that kind of damage, and Kabuto died shortly after. Some distance away, the battle between the two Sannin had become a stalemate. Orochimaru had managed to force Gamahiro to dispel by regurgitating the Kusanagi and delivering several cuts to the toad with the poisoned blade, but Jiraiya had regained much of his chakra control and was able to keep him at bay. Orochimaru's eyes widened in alarm as he saw Kabuto slain. He knew for certain now that he had blundered when he had left the Kyuubi Jinchuriki alive in the forest, if he had become strong enough to kill someone like Kabuto. I need to kill him now. If he is allowed to become any stronger, he will be a serious problem for me later. With this thought in mind, Orochimaru shot himself towards the Uzumaki, making a cheap shot at Jiraiya on the way to force him to back off. Naruto, look out! Jiraiya shouted towards his godson, seeing that he wouldn't be able to catch Orochimaru and stop him. Naruto turned around just in time to see the snake Sannin flying towards him with the Kusanagi held in his mouth, but he was too close to dodge completely, only managing to shift his body enough that he got hit in the right side of his chest instead of the heart. No! Tsunade shouted, snapping out of her hemophobia-induced stupor when she saw her fellow blonde impaled. Orochimaru's mouth twisted into a satisfied smile. Even if he hadn't struck the heart, the poison on the blade would still kill him and spare him from any future headaches. Before he could pull the blade out and retreat, Naruto's hands rose and grabbed onto the hilt of the sword with a death grip. Orochimaru tried to pull the sword out, but his tongue was not as strong as Naruto's hands. Naruto gave a bloody grin towards the snake Sannin, silently declaring that he wasn't going to be letting go of the sword. The point was made moot when Tsunade's fist smashed into her former teammate's face, blasting him away from Naruto and leaving the Kusanagi buried in his chest. Orochimaru assessed the situation and knew that he couldn't stay any longer if he wanted to survive. Against both of his old teammates and without the use of his arms, he couldn't possibly win. It infuriated him that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki had managed to take away his prized sword as his final act. It had taken him years to track down the Kusanagi and now he had lost it to a teenage upstart. What's worse was that he didn't know for sure if the brat was even going to die, not with Tsunade there and the healing factor that he had already shown. Left with no choice, Orochimaru made his escape. His attempt at getting his arms healed had cost him a powerful and useful subordinate along with the Kusanagi. The Snake Sannin was not pleased. Naruto wasted no time in pulling the sword out of his chest, with Tsunade making him lie down immediately after. He could feel the powerful poisons on the blade already working on shutting down his body while his chakra counteracted it. His healing factor didn't work against poisons quite as well as it did against regular injury, so the addition of Tsunade's healing technique was quite welcome. Slowly but surely, he felt the wound close and the poison being purged. "You idiot, getting yourself impaled on a sword like that," the Slug Sannin said with relief, still leaning over him. "Tsunade, your boobs are making it hard to breathe," Naruto mumbled against her breasts. Tenten and Shizune facepalmed while Jiraiya restrained a giggle out of fear of Tsunade. Tsunade herself smacked the blonde in the forehead for the comment, but decided to do no more on account of the fact that he'd just been impaled and poisoned. Getting impaled aside, Naruto said once he'd recovered, "I've got a new sword and we seem to have a new Hokage, and I like her better than the Sandaime already." He finished, giving a short wave of the sword that was still stained in his blood. Everyone looked towards Tsunade with a clear question written on their faces. "Yes, I'll take the post of Godaime Hokage," she confirmed, making everyone give pleased smiles. "Since I like you, I'll even tell you the secret way to avoid doing paperwork, Tsunade," Naruto told her with a grin, making the woman look towards him with eager eyes. That was one of the things she dreaded most about becoming Hokage. "What's the secret way? I'll tell you when we get back to Konoha." That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.